sure our cameras are actually working. Yep, good there. Alright. Okay, that's good. Get the other things up and going. Let everyone know that we're going live.
What the heck?
Oh boy.
Yeah, the Starcaster. Interesting. OW.
Oh, that did not copyright. Why the heck did it do it like that? It's been difficult.
No. OW line will be streamed live. Oh, that's pinned. Okay.
What the heck?
There it is.
It's like not actually copy pasted. There we go. Woo! Alright. Now that it's actually going to work now, that'd be good. Oh boy! Alright. Okay, I already tweeted out. I don't need that. That's good. Let me pull out the chat. Alright. Now I can go post into places. It's weird, like, I think because I was opening the soundboard, it was like kind of interfering when I was trying to paste in the Discord for some reason. Because I think it was like trying to act like I was trying to hotkey something on the board.
Huh.
It's weird. Okay. Where's the other one? Alright. That should be everywhere.
Okay.
In all of the Discords.
Discord. I'm just going to copy your copy and go put it in here.
That works.
Oh. What the heck? There we go.
See, I'm not the only one having issues.
I just clicked on the wrong channel, so.
Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah. A little bit. All right.
That should be good. I might just need to lower my volume a little bit. Can you go ahead and say something just so I can make sure it's not too loud?
Check. Saying things.
That should be good. All right. As I start painting everyone with my Windows sound. All right, yeah, I'm good. Let's do it. Let's do a show so I don't have to miss map 1.
Yeah, true.
All right. Hitting the sounder now. You are listening to Overwatch League Network, The Backcap, the podcast with insight on the Overwatch League's path to pro and contenders analysis. Here are your hosts, Emily Drunk and Ren. What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWLN, the Backcap, the podcast focusing on the path to pro and Overwatch's Tier 2 scene. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight is episode 13, lucky 13. And, we're going to go around the league discussing everything going on in the path to pro. The latest news. We're going to break down the NA Contenders playoff quarterfinals that happened here in the past couple of days, and we'll preview next week's Europe playoff quarterfinals. But before we get into that and introduce you to my co-hosts, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out here in our Twitch chat here for the live show, and thank all of our repeat listeners. Of course, as always, I have someone here with me to help break everything down. Ren, two more regions have wrapped up their regular season and are headed into their playoffs, that being, Korea and South America. And then we have next week, all the remaining regions will be doing the same as they enter their week 5. So we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty here, and things are really starting to shake up. And, obviously we had some pretty big matches this week, so, how you feeling after some pretty intense games overall?
I feel good. I mean, these games this week were really exciting in NA. We've got EU coming up soon, and with the rest of the other regions wrapping up soon, I mean, it's going to be hot and heated for sure coming up in Contenders Overwatch. So I'm excited to see what happens these next couple weeks.
Absolutely. So, guys, we don't really have a ton of news this week just because, it is kind of like the playoff week, and a lot of, roster locks have already happened, so there's really not, a ton of movement going on in regards to that. But we did get some news that kind of dropped in the middle of the, North American stream for Contenders here, and that was that we do have some details in regards to the LAN finals for NA and EU. Now, basically what we know is that, the NA-EU Overwatch Contender Season 1 LAN finals are going to be held in Poland. And, kind of given its deep history in esports, I would have to assume that means it's going to be in Katowice, just because that's where, the esports scene really is in Poland. Now, we have seen stops in Katowice before with, the playoffs, or not the playoffs, the World Cup stuff for Overwatch, so shouldn't be too much of a surprise there. But what's important to note here is that this is not, an official announcement, because we haven't really heard anything in regards from, the actual website. This actually came through from Gina, who has, been on the desk, and it kind of felt like it was kind of like a slip of the tongue, and then, the casters just kind of, went for it at that point. But we did have some of the playoff teams out there that did kind of also confirm it based on some of their tweets, that being, Fusion University and XL2 Academy. Now, granted, one of those isn't actually going to be going to Poland, and it might surprise you as to which one that could be, but, we don't have, a set date for the LAN, so, this is still kind of, up in the air at this point, but I want to get your thoughts on this. So, we know we're going to Poland, so there's going to be travel involved. Do you worry about any sort of visa issues when it comes to the LAN finals for NA and DU?
In general, I want to say no, just because, I mean, hopefully these players have been anticipating something like this happening, and that'll have given them the time in the past to prepare and have their passports and all that stuff in order, and hopefully be ready to be receiving visas to go over there. I don't know what the visa requirements are for going to Poland, but I am pretty confident that they're less strict than what we see from Korean players trying to come to the States. So hopefully they won't have as many issues in trying to get there.
I hope so, because it would be a bummer to see teams kind of short-staffed going into, such high caliber matches moving forward. Now, moving on, we did have another sign-in that was coming out of Contenders. Now, we've talked about, past sign-ins in the past when it comes to, Contenders players being picked up for the Overwatch League. And this is, kind of past the deadline for that, but, some teams kind of, held off on actually doing their announcement, so this is probably going to be, the last pickup we actually talk about in regards to going from Contenders to the Overwatch League. And this one is coming out of Contenders Korea. So, the LA Valiant have rounded out their team. They added a 12th player to their roster, and they turned to Contenders Korea and signed flex support Need from Foxes. So, Need is going to be undergoing an ID change, and he'll now be known as Isayaki moving forward. And for those that aren't familiar with the Korean scene or Need in general, this is a Fraggers and Yada player. He also does flex on the Ana as well. And, I don't know how much you've been watching, like in terms of like the total regions, but like for me, like I'd consider him to probably be like top 3 overall just in contenders, like regardless of region. I think like top spot probably would have to go to Alarm. Elk is
Yeah.
doing some pretty good stuff as well, but I think Alarm is still the top dog, but Need has definitely been in the discussion. And, with his addition to that Valiant lineup, that now gives them, 4 supports. They're back to having 4 DPS. They got their 4 tanks. So, could this be the return of a sister team? Or, is he going to be a player that's just kind of like put in to, games based on map situations like we've kind of seen in the past?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they have rounded out that roster because, like you said, they have their 4 tanks and they have basically doubles of every single role on their roster now, which allows them to do internal scrims, which I think is a huge part of having a successful roster in the Overwatch League. I think that contributed a lot to London's success, especially in the early season. But what I think is kind of gimmicky just about the Valiant, just to go off on that a little bit, is the whole sister team concept. I think that it would be more effective if they trained their players to be not interchangeable, but to have 2 players of the same role that have different strengths, maybe, and sub them in as needed, rather than having 2 distinct rosters that never intermingle. But I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing with it. I think it's great. It's a step in the right direction for them rounding out that roster to 12.
Yeah, now Valiant, they had been a team that made a ton of moves lately, and they won again today in the Battle for LA in a very close series against the Gladiators. That was 3-2. So they still have not yet lost a series so far in Stage 3. So that's definitely a team that has some pretty big expectations, at least making the playoffs push in this one, and it's looking pretty good overall, I'd say, for them to make the end of the season 1 as well, because I mean, there's a ton of teams that are kind of like still in the chase in regards to, the legit playoffs, because you have a ton of teams that are like 16-8 right now. So I can't wait to see how all of that madness is going to unfold, and just seeing how the map differentials will come into play. But Valiant looking pretty damn good here as of late. But in other news, we did get some news that did drop earlier today, and that is coming out of the camp of Energy Esports. So, Energy Esports has partnered with University of California, Berkeley, and they're doing an esports partnership with, Energy and like the San Francisco Shock, because, they are, in fact, basically the same org. And basically, like, this partnership is really like the first of its kind, because you have a major university that is getting partnered with a professional esports organization. And they're going to be opening up like a new campus esports community center in fall of this year. And, UC Berkeley, this is a team that I'm pretty sure we've talked about it. It might have been on this show even, when we covered the Fiesta Bowl, which was the Overwatch Collegiate National Championship, which, they had also won the year prior. So, they're back-to-back champs in their own right. And they're basically going to be looking to provide, support for educational and professional development programs for all of their esports athletes, so their students. And, they're also going to be looking at, like, health and wellness type programs for gamers. They have, like, an initiative for women of gaming to kind of create a gateway for more female gamers to kind of, like, enter the scene. But really, like, when I look at this, I'm like... I initially was, like, laughing because I'm like, okay, so is this going to be Energy's way of finally getting a championship-type caliber team on their roster? I don't know, but it does kind of open the door. I mean, not only will Energy, have an opportunity to really like build their brand locally, which is always good. I mean, I don't think their fan base is quite grown to the extent as the LA teams as of yet, but that could change with this. But it does kind of open the door for a possibility of maybe UC Berkeley, becoming a scrim opponent for Energy or the San Francisco Shock in the future. So I'm kind of excited about that, because we've already seen what UC Berkeley can do, and to get practice against a like a more established team, regardless of if it is, Overwatch League or Tier 2. Like, that's only going to help strengthen that team even further when they've already proven to be, better than most of the other college teams out there right now.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to see like what the partnership brings and what kind of relationship they have like between NRG specifically and UC Berkeley, just because I mean, like you were saying, UC Berkeley is basically at that top echelon of the collegiate esports scene in Overwatch at least, and I think that NRG could definitely, like you said, benefit from having a partner of that caliber. Uh, sorry. That said, man, where was I going with that? I think, oh, just about how the relation where I was going with the relationship between them is how they might interact with their rosters. I don't know if like these collegiate players are hoping to get into Contenders and then into Overwatch League, if it's going to be like a feed system like that, or what that sequence of events is going to look like. Do you know anything about that kind of sequence, mate?
I mean, they really didn't touch up on that.
Okay.
So who knows? It could be a situation where, who knows, we might actually see some of the Berkeley players get in, more opportunities here in the future. But, we'll kind of have to see, like, maybe we'll see this team come up through Open Division, because it would technically have to start there, more than likely, just
Right.
because they need to prove themselves at, that level initially before making that jump to Contenders. Overall, I feel like. But, they have shown a ton of potential, just based off of what we have seen from them on the Fiesta Bowl. So, we'll have to kind of, like, keep our eyes out. Maybe we'll see Berkeley enter in the fold here pretty soon. But, regardless, like, this is a huge deal if you are going to UC Berkeley. That is one of the more, like, prestige schools in that area, too, as well, which is definitely worth noting as well. But I'm excited to see what NRG is going to be doing in the future, because, they've really done a lot lately. They released, they have this partnership, they have their jerseys going out now. One of the few, like, Path to Pro teams that actually do have jerseys, which I'll kind of talk about later. But, unfortunately, they're not in it anymore, as we'll talk about right now, because, we did have the Contenders North America quarterfinals here on Sunday and Tuesday this week. So on Sunday, we saw Toronto Esports defeat Energy Esports 3-1. We also saw Envision Esports defeat XL2 Academy. That was with a score of 3-2. And then on Tuesday, we saw Fusion University defeat Mayhem Academy in a clean 3-0. And yes, I said 3-0. This did not go to a map 5. So there's that for Fusion, where it's a step in the right direction. And then Optic Academy ended the week defeating the Gladiators Legion 3-2 in what was a really interesting series, which we will definitely talk about. But first, let's talk about that Toronto Esports versus Energy Esports game that kicked things off. Before we, like, get into the actual breakdown, it's worth noting, like, Toronto has been getting pelted with ice storms, and this was going on Sunday. So Toronto Esports had to end up playing from a PC cafe due to, like, a power failure at their team house, so they weren't actually able to play from their house. But, regardless, it's a good thing that they were still all together. They could still have that LAN opportunity playing beside one another. And, Energy, we kind of got a different look from them now that, Damon got the call up to the Overwatch League, now playing on the Shanghai Dragons. Now, granted, with Otto and Dia back into the fold, he's kind of taken a step back in that. But Ren, I want to get your thoughts on this series. Energy's been kind of wishy-washy at times. Toronto, who has been very consistent overall. What were some of your takeaways from this series in particular?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and say that I definitely wasn't surprised by the result. Like you said, Toronto's just been super consistent. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is NRG's recent inconsistency, partially due to, in my opinion, the loss of Damon to the Shanghai Dragons. I mean, we saw them definitely falter after he left their roster in their game last week against Bye Week. As we've known them in the past, the free win team. And I mean, bye week took them to a map 5, so we definitely saw Energy a little bit thrown off their game by one of the less intimidating teams. That said, going up against number 1 seed Toronto Esports must have been pretty scary for them because, I mean, like you said, their record has just been really consistent and really impressive overall in Contenders so far. I did want to take a second, you already touched on it, but just to commend Toronto on their efforts going to the internet cafe. I mean, on Twitter, they were saying they basically hauled all of their PCs over to the cafe to set up their LAN over there. And I was like, wow, like that. First of all, that's dedication. You know, these guys are in it to win it. They want to get their game done and play. And I mean, just the level of perseverance was impressive. But also, I think that it might have been a tactical move. They mentioned it a little bit on the desk too. If they hadn't made those accommodations to be able to play that day, then they would have had to postpone their game until Tuesday to play with on the days that Fusion and the Optic games were. That said, if I were in Toronto's shoes, I would want to get the game over with sooner. One, it gives you a little more breathing room after the game, and also it kind of allows you to take advantage of NRG being off their balance after their loss to bye week. Not trying to totally discount NRG here at all, definitely, because I mean they had some strong spots. We had a really strong showing from Stratus. I mean, he's kind of been their star player in my opinion this whole time. So he had like some really cool moments that I was impressed to see, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough to carry them through. I know we talked about it earlier, but Stratus teching up onto the ceiling in Horizon as a Junkrat, I was like, oh, it's like he's a Pharah, but he's a Junkrat. So that was some prime, not glitching, but teching basically. I don't know how he even got up there, but I thought that was pretty funny. But the last thing that I was just going to touch on is while NRG had that one strong player, Toronto also had their strong player in Dalton. I mean, Dalton has been on fire on his Tracer this whole season. And I mean, people have talked about him as being Overwatch League caliber already. He's got great mechanics. He had some awesome plays in this week's game. So having that star player and a bunch of other strong players in a team that is really cohered well together, and I mean they're in a LAN environment, I'm sure that does wonders for their communication, their ping, their team feel overall. So impressive stuff coming out of Toronto this week for sure.
Absolutely. You know, just talking about Dalton for a minute, there was a huge play that he had, and it was going like Energy came out with the Transcendence, and then Dalton comes in, lands a pulse bomb, ends up killing 2 through the Transcendence, and then, you know, on the other side, you know, Stratus, who was really like the counterpart to Dalton, you know, he was making plays regardless of if he was alive or not, because there was a moment when he was on the Junkrat where he basically like won them the round after killing 2 with his Total Mayhem passive. So,
yeah,
you know, he's a force to be reckoned with, and, you know, sometimes he just strikes from beyond the grave. So, guys, you know, pay attention to Junkrats when they die. I mean, we can't have that happen. And speaking of things that we can't constantly see happening, which it did happen not once, but multiple times on the same exact map, but on Dorado. I don't know what it is, but Dorado has, like... Dorado's been the map that people are just having a hard time just staying on the payload. We saw Energy coming through with, you know, the C9 on Dorado. It happened in another series that I'll talk about, but I just don't know what it is about that map, but that map, more than all of the others, at least on the Contenders level, has seemed to generate the most C9s, so gotta pay attention to your positioning, guys. But really, I was not surprised in at least to see Toronto moving on, and they've kind of been a team that, well, I know, like, you didn't get to do your predictions in time for the challenge thing that we did, but I actually have Toronto taking this one, and, you know, we'll talk more about, you know, the future matches for the semis. But before we do that, we got to break down the other quarterfinals matches. So, that second game that was on Sunday was between Envision Esports and XL2 Academy. And as I mentioned, Envision did take that one 3-2. And I have to say, there were some pretty damn questionable decisions being made on the XL2 Academy's behalf. So, looking at map 1, this was over on Nepal. Envision took a quick map 1. They took both other rounds on that with a 2-0 round score. And Buds was really the one that came through big in this entire series for Envision. Yeah. He opened up with 12 kills, having only died 3 times. And throughout that map, he had charged 6 ultimates in a little bit over 8.5 minutes, which was pretty darn good. And XL2 kind of brought the series back. They went on Numbani, and they finished that one. And then Envision was just shut down on the offense. He only managed to get 66% on that first point. And it was really the front line of XL2 that really swayed that map in particular, because the tanks, they posted a 26-5 kill to death ratio. And Mangachu, at least on this map, did a very good job at keeping Envision in check with the grenade spam, whether it was on the Junkrat or with the Pharaoh rockets. And then Nenny was just there getting the big picks for the cleanup on the Widowmaker. So pretty good stuff on there. But then, speaking of Dorado, this is where things I don't know what the heck was going on. So XL2 opted to run a Widowmaker and Pharah on Dorado defense. Now, it's important to note, both of those characters need a Mercy to pocket them. And both were being countered by Envision because Buds was lighting everyone up on the Widowmaker. And, we just didn't see the flexibility there. I would say, part of that is, Mangachu feels comfortable on the Pharah, but Buds had his number. And the same could be said when we compared, Nene to Buds, because Buds was just clicking domes constantly. He was putting in the work for Envision, and, Mangachu was just stubborn. We didn't see the swaps, and they just kept trying to run the same thing, and, that's kind of been one of the problems with XL2 Academy, because they've not been able to run their best DPS duo, which would be Flower and Nene, and when it happens, it really kind of softens the blow that XL2 can deal. And I don't know if part of that is communication issues between the two, or they don't want to be dealing with the differential pains, but they could be dealing with that one way or another during a series based on who's getting the server choice. But if they can't figure that out, I expect Mangachu to get perma-benched once they can figure out Flower getting paired with Nene, because Mangachu, while I like watching him, I like seeing the Pharah, there are times where he just sticks to something for far too long, and then that map is over before it really starts, and that was the case with Dorado. But yeah. All in all, though, Envision, they took both control maps, and that ultimately won them that series, but, come on, guys. You can't be sticking to stuff that isn't working. Buds had your number, you guys didn't try to counter him, and if anything, you made matters worse by sticking to 2 characters in particular that just weren't working against one Widowmaker, and they just got held in check. So, I don't know, I was just left flabbergasted with that series. I knew it was going to be close. I think Envision definitely looked like a more cohesive team, and they probably have had some of the better team synergy across NA overall outside of Toronto, but I expected a little bit more out of XL2, and a lot of that just has to do with the fact that they can't run their 2 best DPS due to server pain.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I was perplexed by Mangachu specifically, just continuously running that Pharah into Buds' Tracer. I mean, not Tracer, Widowmaker, just because, like you said, Buds was on fire, and there were several times where Mangachu would come up on the Pharah, and Buds would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick you out of the sky," and then, "Oh, here comes Mercy, reses him, and then here comes Mangachu up again." Right away, no hesitation. Buds is just, like you said, he's got his number, and I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if Mangachu got the bench after they figure out the whole getting people on the same servers issue, just because of that. I don't know if it's stubbornness or I mean it's not lack of flexibility. There are other heroes that he can play well. It's just that Pharah is that comfort pick, and I understand that, but like there are just certain situations where it doesn't work, and if it's not working, you need to figure out another solution to that problem.
Yeah, it really makes you kind of question, well, should you just run Flower Nene regardless, even if one player is at a pain disadvantage? Because
Yeah.
that is the DPS pairing that does offer the most flexibility, and then one of them isn't pigeonholed into only running, like, one hero, essentially. So, I don't know, but, I think we all kind of expected a little bit more out of Flower, since he got called up to, well, I wouldn't say called up, but since he started playing for Excellent 2 Academy, so it's not the end of the world, but I wanted to see a little bit more out of their academy team. But Envision looking pretty good. I'm looking forward to that next match that they're going to have. But moving on, on Tuesday we saw Fusion University going up against Mayhem Academy in what was a quick 3-0. And I have to say, like, this was another one of those series that the indecisions made by one particular team just made it way too easy for the opposition, and it was Mayhem Academy that were just, like, really slow to adapt. They were kind of sticking on team compositions that just weren't working. There were some instances, like on Horizon Lunar Colony, where they were only able to get 4 pushes in about 4 minutes on that map, and that wasn't doing them any favors. And then you kind of look at, like, who's on that roster. So you have Ziza, who's like, Zaza's hero pool just doesn't really complement to the current meta that well. And there were a lot of times where we saw the Fusion University support just kind of like hanging around in the choke points, just shooting long range shots at like spawn doors, things like that. And, there's still some work that needs to be done for Fusion University. Zachary at times has been the hard carry, really turning the tide in the clutch in some of these fights, but like his Widowmaker play lately, especially like when they were trying to like hype him up a little bit, it seemed like more times than not he was hitting body shots, and that's all right, assuming you're getting boosted. But when you're not getting boosted, you really need to land those shots. So he needs to work on that a little bit. That's really been his one Achilles heel so far throughout Contenders. But I'm expecting him to bounce back because he has been doing pretty good otherwise, and this win means that we're going to get to see Who Are You and Alarm get into play on LAN, which I'm really excited about, being Lunatic High alums. And Alarm has just been an absolute terror on the back line for the Fusion University, which, you and I have talked about quite extensively. But, I know it was an easy 3-0 Fusion University. I think they just need to work on, I think they need to just clean up the dive a little bit more, and then they'll be good to go. Now, that being said, I did get some news earlier today, which I was pretty excited about, and that was that I actually won a giveaway that was put on by Fusion University, and I actually won a signed jersey. And I did pick Zachary for my pick, as, I didn't know who to pick initially, because I'm like, well, I like everyone on this team. And everyone knows I've long followed the Korean scene, so I'm like, do I get Alarm? Do I get Who Are You? I mean, Lunatic High was my team, and I'm like, but Zachary, I gotta support the NA talent, and there's so much talent to choose from, but I stuck with my gut. I picked Zachary, so, whenever that jersey does come in, whenever they are printed, I'm definitely gonna be, rocking it on this podcast, but I was really, really surprised to see that I actually won that, so, I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product. It might be a little while. I think they said, like, it would be after Contenders where they get everything shipped out, but stay tuned on that.
Yeah, I think they were saying that it'll come in mid-May or something like that. But another thing that I just wanted to highlight real quick about the Fusion University lineup is I mean, they have a really strong lineup all the way through. I mean, you've mentioned Zachary, you've mentioned Who Are You, Alarm, but Alarm and Elk too. Like I want to talk about in this matchup against Mayhem Academy, just because Mayhem Academy's support line specifically has looked very shaky in the past, and Fusion University, I mean, their support line is what it is, and it's amazing, And I think that just deserves some recognition at least. I mean, they outclassed Mayhem in every regard. So I think that really contributed a lot to their ability to make it a clean 3-0. It feels weird saying that, a clean 3-0 sweep.
Absolutely. Well, they'll definitely have a tougher test here in the semis because, that Optic Gladiators Legion series, that was something, and kind of the way it kind of ended was interesting. We saw, Dorado kind of pop in again. So that was the thing. But Ren, we saw a very close series between these two. There were a lot of big moments on both sides. So I just want to get your thoughts on the series. Like, what did you take away from the Optic versus the Legion?
The main thing that I wanted to at least open with was kind of talking about the meta strategy between these two teams specifically, or meta, what am I saying? The macro strategy between these two teams specifically is that, I mean, we've watched the games, we've watched the season develop. We know Sharp is this terror on the Optic Academy lineup, and it's finally gotten to the point where other teams are like, oh, hey, this guy is pretty good. We should probably watch out for him maybe a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you could see that at the beginning of the series because Gladiators Legion came out swinging. They were like, we need to shut down Sharp. And when they were able to do that effectively, they won. They did extremely well and were able to just kind of neutralize Optic's pushes because Sharp just has that much carry potential on their team for them. It was kind of funny, honestly, to see all of Gladiators kind of coming against that Tracer specifically on Optic, just because you're used to like, oh, the Tracer v Tracer, the whatever, like 1v1 kind of thing. But no, they were all focused on that, and he kept getting caught out by like Junkrat traps and things like that. But like once the rest of Optic got a little warmed up later on in the series, Gladiators kind of had to like divert their attention back away from Sharp, and I think that's when we started seeing the back and forth between the two, and the ability for Optic to contend with the Gladiators and eventually come out on top. Because if they can't all focus on Sharp and you draw their attention away from him, then Sharp is able to do his dirty work again.
Right, but yeah, like, Sharp has definitely been, like, the standout for the Optic roster, especially on the DPS line, and then you look at, the second DPS, that being Color, and he's looked, really good on the Widow, but, like, everything else that we've kind of seen from him has kind of felt pretty lackluster, so for me, like, Color has been, like, the question mark for this team. Whether or not he's going to be able to take some of that pressure off of Sharp is kind of like up in the air, and that's really like one of my biggest concerns with that team moving forward, because I don't think they're as complete of a team as some of these other teams that are going to be in the round of four. So we'll let to see like what exactly he does. But there was one play in particular that I have to talk about, and it was on Hollywood, and this is one that I'd clipped. I posted it on the competitive Overwatch Reddit. It really blew up. I know it's on like the trend in for the Overwatch Contenders Twitch as well, and that was Panker, who had popped his Primal Rage, and he was just going completely nutty inside the cafe, just destroyed everything in his path, and it was just, it was a good moment, and it was a big play overall. But like, I have to go back to Dorado. So there was kind of a moment where we were getting near the end, and they Gladiators decided to just not play the payload. And I can't say that it's really a surprise to me, just because Gods and Roof are both on that roster. And, that was a very decisive C9. And, they had an amazing push before that, and it ended up costing them the series. And, looking back at some of the other C9s that we've had in Path to Pro, like, or just in Overwatch in general, like, that was arguably the biggest C9 since that meme originated in competitive Overwatch. Like, it was baffling, and, I hate to see it happen in one series. I hate it that much more to see it end in that sort of fashion, especially in a series that was going, pretty much back and forth overall, but doesn't feel good to lose based off of, a very easy mistake to fix. was actually staying on the objective. So hate to see it, but it is Optic that is moving on. Despite that, oof. Now, that being said, guys, as we mentioned, the LAN finals are coming up. That does include the semifinals, and they have not set the date for that, but I want to at least acknowledge the matches that we're going to be seeing for the round of four for North America. So it's basically going to be like how it was based on the days that the teams competed. So, we'll have Toronto Esports going up against Envision Esports, and then we'll have Fusion University going up against Optic Academy. So I just want to get your gut reactions, Ren. Like, who do you favor to advance to the finals in Poland between these four teams?
I mean, flat out, I think that the final is going to come down to Toronto and Fusion. That's just my what my gut is telling me. I mean, I also wouldn't be surprised if Envision made it out there, but the way it looks right now, that's kind of the way I'm leaning. So, I guess only time will tell. I don't know. Like you said, I guess when they released that it was in Poland, that might have been a slip of the tongue or something like that. So I know we don't have the dates for that, but hopefully it comes sooner rather than later because I'm anticipating this a lot. But we'll see how it plays out. What about you? How do you think it's gonna end up going?
I mean, I have it the same way. I have Toronto going up against Fusion. I actually have Toronto coming out on top overall. But Envision has been one of those teams that has played just as good as Toronto, while their map record hasn't been as good as them. Like, they've been keeping up pace with them, and it's really hard to tell which way this is going to go. Like, both of their front lines on both of these teams have looked really solid. Toronto, despite having a lot of changes, not like a ton of changes, but they did have a new main tank that entered kind of like mid-season, and that didn't really deter them all that much. So, this one's really going to be kind of a toss-up. And speaking of toss-ups, guys, we got to talk about Contenders Europe. So, next week we do have the quarterfinals kicking off, and we did do like a bracket prediction between Ren and myself, so we'll talk about our picks later on. But to kick things off, this Sunday we're gonna have the British Hurricane going up against Young and Beautiful. We'll also have CIS Hope going up against Orgulous and Hungry, and then on Monday, so back-to-back days of Contenders action, we'll have Eagle Gaming looking to dethrone the reigning champs of Team Giganti, and then we'll have Angry Titans going up against Copenhagen Flames. So, looking at that first matchup, Ren, we have the Hurricane going up against Young and Beautiful. And kind of like looking back, the Hurricane finished, 4-1-0 in the group stage. Young and Beautiful, they picked up 2 wins, and that was against some of the weaker teams because they did manage to pick up wins over Bazooka Puppies, RIP. They're no more, light a candle. As well as the struggle in Mosaic Esports, who, plagued with issues, which we had talked about in the past. And, despite having the addition of Shatter 2K on Young and Beautiful, they've really just been having a hard time kind of getting situated and keeping their backline alive. So, when I look at the Hurricane, I expect them to stick with the dive that they've been pretty prominent in. Now, granted, it hasn't always worked out, but all in all, it has looked pretty good. So I'm not expecting them to have any issues with putting that pressure on Dean and Gustav in this one, and I'm expecting Hurricane to come in. I'm pretty confident that we're going to get a 3-0 in favor of the Hurricane, but I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think this is going to go any other way? What are you looking forward to in this particular match?
I mean, you said it all. I think we're definitely going to see a stronger showing on British Hurricane's side. I would not be surprised if they came out with a 3-0. They've just looked so much more consistent over the course of the season, and they did have that one upset, but that was kind of a weird week. I think we might have been in the Twilight Zone that week or something like that anyways, so I'm going to disregard it. I think that just in general, they have a stronger level of team cohesion than Young and Beautiful has, so...
All right. Well, the next one isn't going to be so cut and dry. We will have CIS Hope going up against Orgulous and Hungry. And Ren, I want you to start this one because I have a lot of thoughts on this particular matchup because this one is really like anyone's game. Both of these teams have looked really solid overall. CIS Hope might have a little bit more momentum, but what are you looking at in regards to this quarterfinals match?
I don't even know because, like you said, it is anyone's game. I When I was doing my bracket and filling it out over the weekend or whenever that was, I think this is the match. I stared at it for like 20 minutes straight. I was like, I don't. I'll flip a coin. I'll flip a coin. I'm pretty sure I ended up picking. I think I ended up picking CIS Hope, and I'll stand by that. I think that it'll come out that way, but it'll be very close. It's going to be a very close 5-game series for sure. Both teams have looked very strong over the course of the season. Orglis and Hungary, I remember at the early stage of the season, I was kind of surprised by them. They came out swinging a lot harder than I thought they would, and I mean, there's like so much that can be said, and so much that is really just up to how that day plays out for the teams. So I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, I will say, like, I do have this one going on Map 5. I also tilted it in favor of CIS Hope. And, what's interesting about this one is these are two teams that have thrown, like, so many different looks at people, and you really don't know, like, what to expect out of them. Lately we saw CIS Hope, especially with Kenzie, bringing in some of those off-meta choices. We saw it, in their last series, bringing in the Mei on, I think it was Ilios.
Yes.
And it was just walling off Naga with the Mei walls and just being an absolute havoc. And he's just really been a monster for Hope. He's really been throwing people off, and I'm expecting kind of more of the same. And then, I look at that front line, and Sharik has really been one of the standout tanks throughout Contenders. I think he's going to turn up that aggression. He'll open up a lot of space for their DPS to work with. But I'm expecting this one to go down to the wire. Orglis and Hungary have been a team that have not been one to overlook. I'm expecting them to bring the fight, but I'm pretty confident this one will go to a Game 5. But, I'm not super confident picking either team. So, that's just Contenders EU in a nutshell, because these two teams are as close as it gets. And, looking at Monday's games, we have another one that's really... I have no idea which way this one's going to go either, because we have Eagle Gaming, who capped off a perfect regular season. They went 5-0-0. They won 16 maps in that, so they went 16-4-1. And then you have Giganti, who, they looked a little bit shakier. They finished 3-2, but they're the defending champs. And while they don't have, all of those, roster members from that former team, because a lot of them did get called up for the Overwatch League, you still have Davin, who has been an absolute tear. You have LH Cloudy, who has really looked like one of the OWL-ready tanks out there. That's really just been the glue holding Giganti together. And, on the other end, Eagle Gaming definitely had one of the easier strength of schedules in the regular season. And they're going to be put to the test in this one. And... a lot of teams have kind of like struggled against that heavy tank composition that Eagle Gaming have been kind of like been known for lately. But I don't think they're going to be able to overly rely on that in this series, just because Giganti's dive has looked pretty good overall. So, this one could come down to whether or not Eagle Gaming will be able to have that flexibility with their lineup. Now, granted, they do have, a full 12-man roster, so they could throw a number of different looks out there. But Giganti could definitely come through with some quick ult charges and deal with that triple quad tank, whatever it is. But, this one I'm kind of torn on. Like, my heart says Giganti, but my head says Eagle Gaming. I don't know which way to go in this one. What about you?
It is definitely a close call. And I think something that is at least deserves being pointed out is that in week 1 of the season, Eagle Gaming took a win off of CIS Hope. It was a very close series. They went 2-1, and it was the first week of the series too. So you could argue CIS Hope was warming up and still kind of finding their footing and all that stuff. But I mean, that does show that despite an otherwise roughly easy schedule, they have had at least a little bit of challenge in their past. On the other side, you have Giganti, like you said, you highlighted Davin, LH Cloudy. And like they have a really strong, several really strong players and just a strong lineup in general. I do have this one going to Team Giganti as well. I do think it'll be close. 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 I do think I don't know. I'll say it'll be probably be Team Giganti 3-1, not necessarily to 5 maps.
I do have this one 3-1, but I actually tilted in favor of Eagle in this one. So this is the first one that you and
Okay.
I are on opposite ends. So this
All
is
right.
this is one of those ones like do do I stick with the championship pedigree of Giganti, just knowing their infrastructure, but knowing that they only have one person from that lineup? I don't know. There's I think there's just too many pieces that Eagle Gaming are going to be able to bring, but like I just question whether or not they're going to be able to have that adaptability to deal with Giganti. If they don't, then Giganti should be able to take this one, but who knows? I mean, we've been wrong in the past. This could be one of those situations, but one way or another, one of us is going to get more points than the other in our predictions. And then to wrap
Yep.
up the quarterfinals, we do have Angry Titans going up against Copenhagen Flames. So, this is another one of those interesting series. You have Angry Titans, who have been, one of the more consistent performing teams in EU's Tier 2 scene for quite some time. And then you have Copenhagen Flames, who have been keeping a lot of series close against some of the better teams out there throughout Contenders thus far. So, Ren, which way are you tilting in this series?
I have selected Angry Titans as the winner of the series. I think that they've shown a lot of strength recently. They did have a little bit of a slower start to the season, but that seems to kind of be a not so surprising thing for some of these teams that we have now in our round of eight. But lately, they've definitely stepped up their game and been able to go to extra rounds with some of the big boys. That said, Copenhagen Flames, I mean, they have had strong showings in the past. I think they beat Giganti in the middle of the season, somewhere in there. Was that week? That weird week?
I'm
It
trying to
doesn't matter.
remember. But regardless, I'm pretty sure Titans did beat Giganti as well, so.
Oh, okay. Either way, I think that it could be close, but I do have Angry Titans taking the match for sure.
Yeah, so when I look at this one, like looking at Copenhagen, we've had Naga really been the DPS that has been coming through for them. He had a really strong series against CAS Hope, and granted, they did lose that one, and he did get out meta just a little bit or out thunk. I don't know. I don't know how you want to phrase it. He got out. The opposition was just one step ahead of him. He just
Right.
got the slightly better of him in the long run. But like you have Angry Titans who, they picked up, big wins over Kagati in Orbulus and Hungary. And those were very recent. So, Titans are coming in with a bit of momentum over some, wins over playoff teams, which is important to note. And I think they're going to be able to just ride that momentum in this one. But that being said, like Copenhagen, when they're on, like they're one of the better teams out there, but they've just had like too many inconsistencies for me to like really favor them against a team like Angry Titans, who have had a more storied pedigree in Europe's Tier 2 scene. So, looking ahead though, we both agreed on most of the teams here. We were kind of split on Eagle Giganti, but I want to get predictions now. Who are you expecting to see playing in the LAN finals in Europe?
The land finals will be CIS Hope versus Angry Titans. That's what I have.
That's actually what I have. so,
All right, look at
so,
that.
so despite Europe being which way's the coin go to land, we agree on that. But are we on the same boat? Do you have CIS Hope taking this one?
I don't have my bracket in front of me, but I'm almost 100% certain that that's what I put in, and just my gut tells me right now, yes. I think that just based on the way that the matches are going, the Angry Titans will make it there to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But once they get there, CIS Hope is gonna show them what's what.
Yeah, I feel like no matter who makes it out of the top part of the bracket, I'm still gonna favor whoever is going to be going up against the lower side, whether that's Angry Titans or Giganti or Eagle Gaming. Who knows? I mean, that side of
Right.
the bracket is really one that could flip either way. But we haven't really had like a ton of matches, so I didn't really plan on doing like a star of the week. But Was there like any player in particular that you think stood out above the pack in regards to the quarterfinals?
Um, hmm. I mean, we mentioned a lot of specific players already, so I think just to give honorable mention to one that we haven't, on Optic Academy, Gray on their
Hmm.
support line, has definitely stepped up and shown what he's made of recently, and I think that he adds a lot of stability to their team. So I think I'll go ahead and give it to Gray.
All right, sounds good. And I've already we've already talked about so many players, so I'm not going to do one this week.
Okay.
But there's been a lot of stand-up moments. I did clip quite a few plays, so if you're over in a Discord, be sure to check out that. There might be some new YouTube content coming for contender specific stuff. Assuming I can figure out, Vegas Pro, that is a work in progress. I'm not going to promise anything, but I am working on something. Whether it actually gets released, I don't know yet. But for now, you can find like some really good clips from the Contenders games over in our Discord. But with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and close out the show here tonight. So if you want to help us out, guys, one of the best ways to do that is to give us a review over on iTunes or your podcast and app of choice. Feedback and constructive criticism, I can't talk, is always welcomed. That will offer us some insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you. We do have a game night that is going to be held this Saturday, that is April 21st, at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I'm going to put an asterisk next to that just because that's going to be happening after the Overwatch League games. And, sometimes you do get a little bit of bleed over on the time. So Saturday after the Overwatch League games, join us for another night of friendly community competitive games. And we will be streaming those live over on our Twitch channel, which hopefully you're at right now. If not, if you're listening to the audio version, that would be at twitch.tv/OWLN show. And I'll be broadcasting that. I'm pretty sure Spider, assuming he shows up, will probably be broadcasting on his channel as well. And who knows, maybe we might do some shoutcasting during some of those matches. But Ren, why don't you go ahead and let the listeners know where they can get a hold of us over on the social media and all of that good stuff.
All right. If you want to email the show, you can do so at owlnshow@gmail.com. We are also streaming on Twitch right now at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We did hit affiliate recently, and you can support our show by subscribing to our Twitch channel, and that'll unlock our network emoticon. So just thank you again to everyone who has been watching our shows live. It's really fun to have you guys out there with us while we're recording. If you want to catch us live, we're on 3 nights a week. We have the flagship Overwatch League Network show on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have the Back Cap, this show, on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific. And we have Heroes Never Die on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. We've also got a great Discord community going on over at discord.me/OWLN show. And we are on YouTube. If you just look for Overwatch League Network, then we will definitely come up. We're getting close to our custom URL, so you guys can help us out by subscribing to our channel, and we'll really appreciate that. All of our podcast episodes, top plays, and other videos can be found over there.
All right. Well, you could also get a hold of myself, Tumbling Drunk. You can find me on Twitter at TumblingDrunkCTR. I've said this before. I'm not going to keep shilling out my Twitch because I'm never on there. So if I am live, it'll definitely be on this channel at twitch.tv/OWLN show. But Ren, where can people get a hold of you over on the social media?
Sometimes I just like to keep a blank Twitch feed open on my computer because it makes me feel like there could be someone there with me, but there's not. So when I want that, that's when I hang out on your Twitch page. But if you want to find me on the social medias, I am on Twitter over at Primal Ren. That's Ren with 2 N's. And I also stream occasionally, every once in a blue moon, on twitch.tv on Twitch. What are words? Whatever. Twitch.tv/Primal Ren. I might be there, I might not be. Thanks.
I mean, sometimes the words will be there, sometimes they won't be. But that being said, guys, that will do it for us here tonight on OWLN, the Back Cap. Again, this has been episode 13, and we hope to see you back here for tomorrow's Heroes Never Die as we break down all the latest news, both inside the game and outside the game in regards to the Overwatch League. But for now, guys, have a good night. Thank you for listening to Overwatch League Network The Backcap. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at OWLN Show, engage with the community on Discord at discord.me/OWLN Show, and join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday night over on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN Show.